Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Steelheads Weekly with myself, Darius Domingues, and Mark Freitas. Mark, how you doing this week?
I'm doing good, another week of hockey through the books. Nice little weekend filled with too much hockey
Hmm.
that I was doing and watching. So it's good. To still got a lot to talk about today about these good Brampton Steelheads.
Definitely a 3-3 weekend, so we have a lot to talk about on this week's episode, including injuries. Ivan Kovic is feeling good again; he's back into the lineup, and a couple crazy games against the old Brampton Battalion that are now in North Bay.
Hmm.
So we'll get into those. But let's start. We usually just get into the games, but there's a big talking piece this week, which is injuries. There's been a couple of injuries that we need to get to. So
Yeah.
as of note, Stevie Leskovar did not play this weekend. Lucas Carmirez got hurt in Friday's game, I believe it was.
Yes.
Went down with injury in the third period of Friday's game, did not play the rest of the weekend. So you have a couple rookies coming in as well. And Mason Zabeski also did not play. I believe it was just Sunday. I could be wrong on that, but I believe he just missed one game. I don't know if.
No, I don't think he played Saturday either.
Okay. So he's missing some time as well. So a couple of injuries for the
Yeah.
Steelheads this week,
Yeah.
and a couple rookies getting into the lineup. We saw Troy Patton actually score his first OHL goal, which we'll get to as well. And a lot to like from the Steelheads this weekend, but also we got to get into the special teams as well. But Mark, you were at both games kind of this weekend. We'll get into it. That were at the CEA Center. So for the first time ever, the North Bay Battalion come back into Brampton on November 1st, and the
Hmm.
Steelheads, huge win for the Steelheads there. They needed that one. We talked about it last week to keep up with the Central Division standings, and the Steelheads win 7-2 with some big performances. What did you see from this game? And there's one thing I'm looking at specifically, which I'll bring up after, that the Steelheads really need to fix. But what did you see from this game?
Dominance really. They came out flying. Um, they were all over North Bay. I mean, North Bay is obviously in they're in the rebuild stage now,
Mm-hmm.
so this is a game you should win. Obviously their big boys stepped up to play. Martone scored a hat trick. He is really, to me, Martone, honest to God, man, he is making a valid point to go first or second overall in the draft this year.
Yes, he is.
Like he's killing it. These guys all have him ranked 4 or 5. He could definitely go hell 1 or 2, and it's amazing. And I haven't seen a player like this for the Steelheads or Majors or whatever in ever because he's so good.
He
This guy's
might
he's
he
scored. He's one of the best players in the guess Mississauga Brampton history, in my opinion. Out of all 3 teams I've seen, he's one of the best players I've seen.
he might be the best player. We've talked about, there's been first round picks in the past. There's been second round picks in the past. You think of like Devontae Smith Pelly with the majors. You think of Owen Tippett, obviously a first round pick, a top 10 pick in the
Hmm.
OHL or the NHL draft, excuse me. But this is a player that is making a case. Like you say, making a case. He could go first overall at this point. Like he has the size. He needs to work on his skating, that's for sure. But everything else, the playmaking, the scoring ability, he has 32 points already. And when you look at like who he's up against, you have an NHL draftee already on Liam Greentree in Windsor, and Windsor's off to a crazy start, and they're playing fantastic.
Yeah.
He's right behind him with 29 points. Michael Misa, who's also in this draft class, with 28 points, right behind him. So Porter Martone, man, he is making a case to go between 1 to 3 for sure. I think that's where we're
Yeah.
at this point. He's a 1 to 3 overall pick, and it could be first because of the size thing. Again, Michael Misa, I think he has a lot of skill. I think he's a great player. He's a little bit on the smaller side, right? Porter Martone has almost everything you need, and I think can translate to the pro game.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if when he does get drafted, he gets maybe the 10-game contract next year before he comes back to the OHL.
Yep.
Heck, maybe he might even stay in the NHL. This might be the last year we see him in junior. Um, so seeing a player like this, like he's got everything, man. Like, um, what it's just I've talked to people that are like, that should come out and watch hockey. I'm like, hey, or watch the OHL, and I'm saying like, you guys should come watch the Steelers. Like, they have this former Martone player is very good, and I've explained to people like you need to come check this guy out. Like he could play.
Yeah.
So trying to spread the word out there to people to come out and watch, and my God, man, like every time the game starts, like he's scoring.
That's the thing. Yeah, and it's true because like 32 points already and he has more goals scored than he has games played at this point. It's just absurd.
He's
And
on X Games mode.
he really is. And he has that X factor. You can see it.
Yeah,
Absolutely 100%. He is a phenomenal player and I wouldn't be surprised if he, sticks in the NHL next year as well because he's a late birthday. This is his third year in the OHL, and this is his
yeah,
draft year, which is a bit unusual if you have a late birthday, right? So I could see him sticking in the NHL. He could be. We have a potential first overall pick playing in Brampton for the Steelheads. So people got to come out and watch this guy, right? You're not going to see this every day. This is maybe not Connor McDavid level or anything like that, but this is a very highly skilled player that could go 1 to 3 overall, depending on who's picking where when we get the NHL lottery later in May. But it's almost December, and he is ripping it up. He is on his way to get well over 100
yeah.
points.
Oh, for sure. And also another point,
Yep.
Craig Button put him on his World Junior roster.
Yes, that's right. So they haven't named the roster yet. And
Yeah,
one
sorry,
thing,
I should say that.
yeah,
I guess like projected roster. I should
yes.
reword that.
So Craig Button, who he believes will be on the roster, obviously, I think it's obvious Porter Martone should be there. He's one of the best players in that age bracket for sure. No matter what, even with NHL already drafted guys coming back to play for Canada, right? Like he's one of the best players still, and will be on that team. And one thing we noticed too is Ivan Kovic not on that list, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's
So
weird.
he is still a younger-ish goaltender compared to I think Canada likes to pick these older goaltenders just because maybe they have more experience, something like that. But I think Ivan Kovic's a really good goalie, so they might be missing out there. But
Yeah.
to stick with the Misa and Martone thing, Luke Misa now playing on that first line with Rakoff and obviously Martone. They looked fantastic together in this game. Obviously, Martone with the hat trick. Another guy who's standing out all of a sudden, and maybe it's because of some injury stuff and he's moved up in the lineup a little bit, is Jack Van Volsen. He had a great game as well. He had 2 goals in this game, and he had a pretty good
Yeah.
weekend following that. We'll get to some of the other games too. But what did you see from Jack Van Volsen this weekend too? Because you know what? He's been very quiet, and this weekend he was making some noise.
Yeah, he scored 2 beautiful goals on Friday, as well as getting a nice assist. So 3 points. He's on a 4-game point streak because he got an assist in the 10-1 victory in Guelph last week. So carried that over from this game to the weekend, I should say, or that game to the weekend. And he's looked good. They even put him on the first line power play. I noticed on Saturday they put him right in front of the net, and that's where you're gonna want him because he's a big boy. He knows how to play hockey. I did an article about him. It'll be in the link of this video. I compared him similar to like Ryan O'Reilly's type of player, like the role he's kind of in,
Mm-hmm.
and like you put him in front of the net, hit rebounds in, develop scoring chances. He's very good in the face-off circle. So it's nice seeing him uh evolve into what we've seen the last few years because he looked very quiet. And as you know, I've talked about him to you at games last year, and he looked good for a bit. Then he kind of you don't see him, but this year he's been very noticeable on the ice. He has, I believe, in 14 games played here. I'm gonna pull it up. I had it on my phone here. In 14 games played this season, he has 13 points, which is very good.
Yeah, he's about a
So,
point a game player. It's very good.
yeah, exactly. 5 goals and 8 assists.
Yeah, he's quietly been getting it done, but most of the scoring came, I feel like, this weekend. But
Oh,
and that's fine. But yeah, the consistency has been an issue for him. We talked about it, like you mentioned, even last season coming into this season. But this season, obviously, almost a point a game player. He's playing very well, and he's another guy who isn't the fastest player, but he has great hands and he has a good shot. So, like you said, put him in front of the net on the power play, and maybe he can make something happen. Obviously, if the set player, whatever they're doing with Martone and who else
yeah.
will be, if it doesn't work out, obviously you can get that rebound and make something of it. So it's pretty good spot from there. But yeah, that was Martone and Van Volsen doing their thing in that game. Huge win for the Steelheads. They needed that one against North Bay.
Oh,
North
big
Bay,
time.
like you said, they're kind of in their rebuilding phase. They're slowly falling down the standings. We'll get to the standings and next week's schedule in a bit too. But Troy Patton, I just wanted to highlight him for a second. First Ontario Hockey League goal in this one. The game was already over, but nice to see him get on the board. He got into the lineup because there was a couple injuries, so glad that he got that for himself, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him going forward.
Oh, for sure. He'll develop, into a more prominent role as his career goes on. That's the thing about the OHL, which I don't understand, is like they kind of like don't play these rookies as much when they kind of should. Like it'd be good for the development instead of them just sitting on the bench for half a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's my opinion. I think it should be a little differently because if you want these guys to develop their game, you can't just have them sit. It's
No.
always good to like, you know, take them in on the lineup. Like, I noticed Cartwright's playing.
Yep.
I think he's been in for Leskovar, I think, for a bit.
He has been.
So
Yeah.
he's looked good, nice big right-handed shot. So everything was good, and I must say it was weird kind of seeing North Bay
In
playing that
Brampton.
arena. But I was telling, I did one thing it did feel right seeing North Bay and those jerseys playing in that rink again. It felt right,
Yeah,
It,
it's like meeting up with an old friend, right? That you haven't seen in
yeah,
a long time. It's that kind of thing. Like you're like, oh, this feels nice.
it
This feels
does,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it felt like a Brampton Battalion game a little bit, So that was fun.
Yeah. It was the first time they've been back, and they're going to be back again. So it's going to be fun to watch that. And to your point, I think Troy Patton is going to get into the lineup more, and not just him, other rookies when the World Juniors come around, because they're going to be missing a couple guys, and obviously as the season goes, there's injuries, stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him. But
100%.
huge 7-2 win there. And one thing that followed them the whole weekend is 0-4 on the power play. This has been a problem last week. It's a problem
Yikes.
coming into this week. Not great. You move into the next game, the next day against the Sarnia Sting at home against CAA Center. 5-3 loss. 0-6 on the power play for the Steelheads in that game. You have to convert. It could have been a different game if they scored on even 2 of those power plays. You have 6 opportunities. You have to try and score. The story of this game, obviously, Zidlicki has been pretty good this season too.
Oh my God.
He's turned
Yeah.
it on. We're going to get to him in a second too, especially with the next game in North Bay. That was on Sunday afternoon. Luke Misa with another goal as well. Ivan Kovic, I thought, played well in both games, this one as well. And they just didn't get the job done. But what do you see from this game? I know you weren't at the entire thing, but what do you see from this one?
Yeah, I shut up halfway during the second period. I had a hockey tournament, so I'm like, oh, I'm done. I want to kill time. Like, oh, they're on right now. So thankfully, my tournament was down at Iceland in Mississauga. It's like a 5-minute, 10-minute drive. Made it there, I think, like 8 minutes into the second.
The
So,
funny thing, just to interject for a second, if they were still playing in Mississauga, that would have been a 30-second trip
oh,
for
it would
you.
have been so fun. I wish they were still at Hershey Center. That'd be so great, just cross the street.
Yeah.
But no, I made it to the game 8 minutes in the second. So from what I saw, I caught like they got a lot of power plays in the third period. They had one specifically near the end of the game. They couldn't capitalize. Sarnia scored on the power play, which was not very good. It gave them the
Yeah.
lead, I believe. Did they give them the lead or it gave them a 4-2 lead?
Um, gave them the 4-2 lead, I believe.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's what it was. But they were, making too many passes, which is something that they've been doing for the last 15 years, no matter the coaching staff. It's just been pass, pass, pass. Just
You're,
throw it on net,
you're also
guys.
correct here. The Steelheads had at least 2 power plays here in the third period that they could have converted on that Sarnia did not. They didn't get any power play opportunities. So you could have really turned the game around there.
They could have, but that goalie for Sarnia played really well. Made some
Very,
good saves.
very good game for him, and obviously a big performance from Easton Wainwright, I believe is his name. So 2 goals for him, a pretty big performance for him. And yes, like you said, I don't know how to pronounce his last name from the Sarnia Sting, their goaltender, but pretty good effort for him on the
Yeah.
afternoon there. So credit where credit's due, but I feel like when you have the talent you have on the Steelheads to go 0-6, I feel like it could have been a different game if you scored on maybe 1 or 2 of them. But
Yeah, for sure.
a little bit of a disappointing game. But again, the big guys doing what they do. Coming into Sunday afternoon, we'll move into Sunday afternoon. And again, like we mentioned off the top of the show, a lot of injuries for the Steelheads. right now. So they're kind of dealing with that, and then heading into a 3-3 weekend, not ideal. Certainly not ideal. So, and having to travel up to North Bay, which is not an easy trip. But the power play gets going in this one. It's a 5-4 win in overtime. It was a crazy finish because the Steelheads were up 3-1, and then I almost called them the Brampton Battalion. The Brampton Steelheads were up 3-1, and the North Bay Battalion came back, made it 4-3. Then late in the third period, Carson Rakoff, he comes in off the wing. It was kind of a floater shot, ends up going in, ties the game. It went to overtime. Zidlicki gets the overtime winner. Again, he's staying hot as well. The power play connected in this game. They were 2 for 3, much better. So that is something to look forward to next weekend. But again, the big guys doing what they do. Van Volsen with another goal. I also have to mention Sova. Sova had 5. He had an assist on every single goal in this game. Insane.
That guy is so good. I said it last week. How is he not on an NHL contract? Or like not on a or like in
In the system
how is he not a
somewhere.
prospect in the
Yes.
system?
Yes. And
Like,
the only reason I could see is because some teams might be like, you know what, we're going to let him finish his junior career and then we're going to sign him to a contract right after junior. Maybe he comes to the AHL, right?
yeah.
That's the only reason I see it because, again, an assist on every single goal in this game. And not just that, I mean, and primary assists too, except for the first goal of the game. But primary assists on these goals. And he was doing it all weekend and he's been doing it all season. He's a great player.
16 points in 13 games.
Yeah, so he's over a point a game player. Great acquisition for the Steelheads and James Richmond in the summer. We said it our first episode. We didn't know exactly how everything was going to fit into place, but it's fitting into place very nicely for Spencer Sova right now. And the overtime winner was just a smart play. He was kind of in no man's land. He just put it on net. It was a rebound. Zidlicki put it in, and a great win for the Steelheads there. So, great effort. Zidlicki looks good. You know, you didn't out.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been great.
Like his speed. I like his speed. He has the jersey tuck too.
Yeah,
It's fantastic. It gives him more speed.
he's got the
Tuck
style.
in the jersey.
Yeah, he's got
He has the style.
But
He knows what's up.
outshot in this game. That's a rarity, I think, for the Steelheads. They usually outshoot their opponents, but only outshot by one shot. But the power play gets going, and I think that's something to look forward to for next week. I don't know how you feel about the power play this entire weekend and what it's been the last couple of weeks, but 2 for 3 in this game. So hopefully they get their confidence up a little bit and they can start converting like into next week.
Yeah, stop passing the puck on the power play and just throw it on net. I think that's what we all just want.
I think that's the recipe for success here. I
It
think
is.
at this point, so they got to continue to do that. But honestly, considering their opponents and that it was a 3-3 with travel at the end of it, the final game, because obviously you would like to end a 3-3 at home twice, but considering there was travel at the end, a pretty good weekend to battle back and win that game on Sunday as well.
Yeah.
And you obviously Sarnia, you want those points. I feel like losing to Sarnia was very disappointing, but like they could have had a 6-point weekend. But Sarnia's in the Western Conference. They're a middling team. You're not, giving points to them in the standings per se, and you are with North Bay. So to take all those points from North Bay was great. And if you look at the standings coming into today, at the time we're recording this Monday morning, the Brampton Steelheads have moved up. Yes, they're in 6th, and the North Bay Battalion have moved down to 7th. I believe they're in 3rd our last episode. So this is what I'm talking about. You have games in hand. Use them. They have 14 games played right now. The teams at the top of the conference have 15 and 16, and they're only 3 points away from the top of the conference. So, 5 points away. 5 points away. But still, I'm going for that division against the Niagara Ice Dogs right now, who are off to a hot start this year. One thing we mentioned last week too, Mark, Peterborough still has not won a game.
That's a shame.
They are
That's a shame.
11-1. They have, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. They have 3 points as they've lost in overtime in a shootout. So they have 3 points on the year, but 0 wins so far. And they have 3 points. The next closest team is Ottawa with 13.
Man, they're making a case like break the Ice Dogs record for like the 90s. Like have like the worst record in the OHL.
That's right. When they were the Mississauga Ice Dogs.
3-65?
It's looking.
Is that they're trying to beat?
It's looking eerily similar so far. They have 0 wins on the season, so we're gonna check in on that every week and see if they end up getting a win. I'm hoping for their sake that they have one next week. That would be really nice. They're 0-7-1-2.
It's our new segment. Have the Peter Freeze won a game?
But yeah, last 10, 0-7, 1 and 2.
Oh
Not
my
ideal.
God.
Not ideal. But the Steelheads
That's
now,
so bad.
4, 5, 1 and 0. So improving a little bit as we go along here because they did have a
Yeah,
very rough patch.
I think they'll go to heater
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. So
I,
we'll tee up, I guess, at this point, next week's games. It's going to be another interesting weekend. They do not play Sunday. They play on the road. They will not be
no,
back home until next Sunday, November 10th.
yeah,
At 2 p.m. for a meeting with Ryerson Leander and the Brantford Bulldogs again. But next week they're on the road. They're in Ottawa and Kingston doing that whole road trip. Ottawa, ninth in the conference, the Eastern Conference. This should be a win, I would think. And then the next day you play the Kingston Frontenacs, who are second in the conference. So it's going to be an interesting game. What do you see out of this weekend? I'm thinking they got to take at least 2 to 3 points, at least.
yeah. Take 2 to 3 points. Even if you could, if you lose one in a shootout in overtime and you win two, you get a nice 5 points in 3 games.
Yeah. Because we're
So
almost at, I mean, after this, they would have 16 games played, I believe. So we're getting, close to the 20 game mark. You want to make sure you're in tops of the conference. They're not there right now, but they can certainly get there. So I'm thinking you got to get at least 2 or 3 points this weekend for sure. And Ottawa, I'm not saying
yeah,
it's going
have
to be an
to.
easy game because Ottawa always plays the Steelheads hard, and we saw it earlier in person this season. But we'll just have to see what happens. Kingston should be a fun game as well. And then they'll return home next week, and we'll tee that up for you then. But, Mark, any final thoughts on any players this week? The power play gets going finally, which is nice. Hopefully that stays on track. And obviously Porter Martone doing his thing.
Yeah, no, everyone else has been very impressive. Mises, like I said, he's popped off again, being reunited with Martone. Van Volsen, he's a guy I'm happy for because I like him. There's just something about him that it's just something I like that he's just the way he plays is good.
Yep.
Um, and speedy recovery to Carmirez, Lescavar, and
Yeah.
Zabeski. Hopefully they're back soon, especially Carmirez, because that injury was didn't look too good. It happened in front of me, but I didn't get to see the landing. Um, because of where I was sitting, but
Mm-hmm.
I hopefully for a speedy recovery, because he couldn't put any weight on that leg. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't look good, that injury, but hopefully nothing too serious. Hopefully we'll see him back in the lineup soon because he's a very important player for the Steelheads. So
hmm
hopefully he's good. And Stevie Lescavar as well, and Mason Sebeski, right? We hope that they
Yeah.
have whatever they're dealing with. Hopefully it's a speedy recovery, and we'll see them back shortly. But that's it for this episode, and we will see you all next week.